Apologize.
Nope, I'm joking. I'm totally joking.
All right, welcome everybody. So I have March 24th, 2025, and we are here talking about security services statewide contract with the Department of Enterprise Services that we call DES. We just introduced Cedric with the DES outreach team, and then Trina Payton on the Washington APEX team. My name is Tiffany Scroggs, and I'll be your training facilitator today. We have launched a poll just to get a sense of who's in the room. I'll go ahead and end that poll in 3 seconds, and we'll share the results, and then we'll go ahead and get started. At any time, you're welcome to go ahead and type into the chat questions or even raise your little virtual hand, and we will call on you, or we will reserve time at the end for your questions. We want to make sure that this session is valuable to you, and the best way we know how to do that is to interact with you during the session. So I'm seeing some in the poll, did you bid the solicitation last year? And if you don't even realize why we're asking that, we'll talk about that. But we had one bidder last year and a bunch of newbies to the party, so welcome. And are you likely to bid on this one? Yes, 100% of you are yes, and I need to silence my phone. And are you working with an APEX? So we have half and half. So we'll talk a little bit about what APEX is, and if you're not yet connected, we'd be happy to do that today. So let's talk about preparing to bid security guard services. So I want to make sure I'm successfully sharing my screen okay. Yeah, I think I'm good. So the APEX Accelerator, this is our agenda today. We're just going to talk briefly about who we are, what we do, and then really dive into the solicitation. In your email are 2 tools that was sent to you a couple hours ago that we will use today interactively. So if you're at a computer, if you have 2 screens and you're able to pull those up, that might be helpful to your learning today as we dive in. If you're driving, don't worry about it, but those are in your email if you registered before about noon o'clock today. So the APEX is funded in part by the United States government as well as the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. And our mission is to increase government contracts and subcontracts awarded to firms in Washington. We do have a focus on serving small minority women veteran-owned firms. We have 17 advisors across the state who help 1,400 businesses each year. Last year, our clients won $500,000 in government contracts and subcontracts. So we're just delighted to do the work that we do, working with businesses day in and day out to help them succeed. This is our team across the state. If you're already connected to APEX, you're probably connected to somebody's name on this screen. If you're not yet connected, we'd be happy to work with you with our no-cost advising services. So what is the difference between the APEX and the government agencies? So I always throw this out there just so you know who you're talking to, because it becomes really important. So state government are official contracting officers. They're the only ones that can spend taxpayer dollars. They cannot help you bid, however. Their job is to make sure that the process is fair, that has integrity, and that they're not giving anyone preference over somebody else. They have to be fair and impartial, and they go to lots of ethic training to make sure that they are being fair and impartial when they write the solicitation and when they award the solicitation. APEX Accelerators, on the other hand, we are a nonprofit, or at Green River College, we have a location, and we are authorized only to provide advising. So we provide technical assistance through counseling, through education, and we cannot obligate taxpayer dollars on behalf of the government. But what we can do is review your proposal and suggest improvements. So if you are bidding something like this solicitation and it's a heavy writing exercise for you and your firm, it would be an excellent opportunity to run that by a third set of eyes, a fresh set of eyes, to ensure that you're being as responsive as possible to the government needs. So there's a pre-bid conference coming up tomorrow, and this is going to be run by the contracting officer, the procurement professional within Department of Enterprise Services. And there are 5 main reasons to attend this. One is you get to meet the buyer. So you get to meet the actual people behind that generic email address. You can also hear who else is in the room, potential partners, potential competitors, potential subcontractors. You can hear which parts of the solicitation they emphasize, which parts are the most important to them. And sometimes they explain things in more plain language rather than the language that's written in the solicitation. The pre-bid sessions are typically not recorded by Department of Enterprise Services, so you must attend live if you want to hear the content. But it gives you a really better understanding of your competition and allows you an opportunity to ask questions. Keep in mind that even though it's not recorded, a lot of times you'll ask a question and they'll be like, can you put that in writing? And then you'll email your question and it will become part of the record of the solicitation. So you want to make sure that you're asking questions you don't mind everybody in the room hearing and seeing then and later. So it's not typically mandatory to attend the pre-bid, but we recommend that you do. It's tomorrow, and the solicitation has the link and the time and all of that jazz. So this particular solicitation has kind of a long history that we'll talk about because hopefully that'll help inform your strategy. So just zooming wide out. So Department of Enterprise Services manages the statewide contracts for all of the state government agencies and optionally for local governments to go ahead and buy off of. They have over, oh, I forgot to update the slide, Cedric. Kim gave me updated annual spend numbers, over $2 billion and more than 1,500 vendors. So those are outdated numbers, but a lot of businesses winning a lot of work through the statewide contracts program. So state agencies and local governments use them to buy commonly purchased goods and services. In fact, state agencies are required to use the statewide contract unless they can come up with a really good reason not to. State agencies must use the statewide contract. Local governments can if they want to. So security guard services is not a new statewide contract. There was one in place for many years and one in place before that one. But what's new is that the solicitation is new. They issued the solicitation last summer and went all the way through the process until the very end when the solicitation was protested, from my understanding, and now they're rebidding it. So for whatever reason, I don't know the reasons, they decided that it would be best for Washington State if they went ahead and did a full rebid. So if you responded to that, if you were the one person that admitted to responding that in the poll, you can go ahead and make sure that you're labeling all of the new documents as new documents and that you're not reusing any of the old documents. That's a good way to find yourself in a bit of a pickle being non-responsive if you use old documents to respond to a new solicitation. Let's see.
Tiffany,
Yes.
when you go into webs, the NASPO one is still out there. Do you have any information about the difference between the two that the audience may appreciate?
No, I saw that one on there. That's a really good question. So for those who don't know, NASPO is another way that agencies buy stuff is through a NASPO contract. And NASPO contracts are typically nationwide. And they're typically posted on webs as a courtesy if Washington is signed on to use them. So I don't know, but that's an excellent question for the DES team tomorrow, unless Cedric, you happen to know. Yeah, go ahead, Cedric.
Yes. So what the NASPO contract is, like Tiffany said, is a national contract, and all of the states that are signed up have the option to use that. Washington State prefers to not necessarily utilize nationwide contracts and keep their spend within the state of Washington. So yes, there is a NASPO national contract, but we are putting out our own so we can keep the money within Washington.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So just to put a pin in it, the caution is to make sure that you compare that you're downloading the right Washington State one and not the NASPO one.
Yeah, and if you're a nationwide vendor, you might want to take a look at the NASPO one, see if that might be of interest. Okay. So the security guard services, this is a screenshot of what's live on the DES website right now. It's number 03818. And this is the one that expired. And it said contract expired December 31, 24. DES is developing a new solicitation to replace this contract. Updates can be found here. And it says there's a gap in services. Purchasers may want to consider alternative procurement solutions. And so that's leaving agencies to go find other solicitation opportunities, which tells me that as a vendor on this contract, if I were a vendor bidding on it, I might understand that it'll take a little while for agencies to come back to this contract once it's awarded, because if they had some sort of on-call security or regular security services through their agency, they might have already found a different solution before coming back to this one. But either way, that is just something to keep in mind. And everyone will get a copy of these slides, and those links inside the slide deck will be live. So you can go find all this information. Nothing I say here is secret.
Hey, Tiffany, sorry, can you go back one slide? Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So something that we definitely want to ensure everyone understands is if you're looking at this, you can see 3 different categories of security guard services. So when it comes to that, so you can either bid on all 3 categories, or you can just bid on the ones that are applicable to you. So just wanted to make sure everyone understood that.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about the history of this solicitation, which hopefully will help you when you make your bid, no bid decision, which we'll talk about in a second. So all of this data was found on the data.wa.gov website, where I downloaded all of the statewide contract spend, and then I put it into a pivot table, and that's where I got these charts and graphs. So, and I did that today. So this is as up to date as you can get. Agency contracts between 2019 and 2024, when the contract expired, totaled 70 million. So pretty significant opportunity here. And you can see that contract spend went up over time, which is important to see that security services are in higher demand than ever before. These are the vendors that were on that expired contract, and you can see their spend. And some of you might be in the room today. We have Security Services Northwest and Phoenix Protective Corporation kind of up at the top with significant sales over time. Remember, this is combined data from 2019 to 2024. This is who was using the contract to get security guard services purchased. We have state agencies coming in as the top user of this contract, followed by higher ed, and then a sprinkling of other types of governments. But with $70 million, even 1%, 3%, 6%, that's still a significant chunk of change in terms of activity on this contract. These are the top agencies specifically that purchased security guard services over that time period. So Children, Youth, and Families, DSHS, known as Department of Social and Health Services, followed by Transportation, Department of Enterprise Services, Sound Transit, and Green River College is there too. So now we have a higher education institution who's choosing to use this, even though they don't have to. So that's a good sign that this contract worked well for Green River, and it might work well for the university or higher ed institution in your area. Oh, sorry. Okay. So also the solicitation history is very nice. DES tries to be very transparent. You can go to this link and pull up the original solicitation documentation, the contracts awarded, and see the pricing that was on tap for that contract at that time. What I can't tell you offhand is whether or not things have changed between the pricing model before and the solicitation requirements now, but you could get a general sense of what you're dealing with by looking at this data, and that'll help you inform your strategy and inform your bid or no bid decision. So what will happen? Let's kind of zoom back out. So if you are one of the awardees, so say you submit your proposal on time and you're responsive and you win, congratulations. You'll be listed on the statewide contract site, which we kind of saw a screenshot of that before. You will then need to implement a marketing strategy to potential customers, to those state agencies and those local governments, to let them know that there's a super easy pathway for them to buy from you. And APEX can help you with your strategy if you need it. After award, you'll work with the specific state and local agency on the specific work scope. So, and then it gets a little bit fine-tuned based on their needs. And you'll report quarterly to Department of Enterprise Services. Whether or not you have any sales, you still have to report quarterly. And I put in bold there that there's no guarantee that you'll get any work. And that's important to realize because this is not an opportunity that's guaranteed to get a chunk of that 70 million and spend over the 5 years. It's just an opportunity, and you could get $0 of that. So that's where the strategy comes into place. Cedric.
Sorry to
No,
keep
sorry. Yeah, I
saying-
love you popping in. Go ahead.
So thank you for highlighting that. I just want everyone to keep in mind that getting on the statewide contract is the first step. Once you get on the statewide contract, it is still up to you to continue to do your marketing and advertising to those agencies so that they know that you are there. So don't think just because you're on there, you're automatically going to get work like is shown here and highlighted. So, know, there's still work that you have to do.
Great. I thank you for footstepping that. Yeah. So this is what the current opportunity looks like in Webs. If anyone is not able to log into Webs or is not registered in Webs, please let Trina know in the chat and we'll follow up with you after this. We'd be happy to help get you in there, connect you to their help desk or whatever the issue is. You have to be in Webs in order to see the full solicitation documents. I only gave you one of the many, and to see amendments. There will be amendments, guaranteed. So keep in mind that Webs is the only authoritative source. So even if OMWBE or APEX or Cedric, for example, emails you contract information, that's not the authoritative source. You have to go to Webs and download it there to make sure that you have the correct and updated one. You also want to, while you're in there, check your commodity codes and make sure that you're getting email notifications about this opportunity. Some of you may have been invited to the session because you were registered to sell security guard services to the federal government. And I went and found you and emailed you a link to this. So if you're new to state procurement, welcome. You will have to register in Webs and select commodity codes that are relevant to what it is you do. And that's how the system knows to email you. If you're not getting emails about the solicitation, then something's wrong and we can help you figure that out. If you scroll down on the current opportunity within Webs, you'll see the vendors that have downloaded it. And this is a kind of a useful feature so you can kind of see who might be also thinking about bidding for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's a teaming partner, maybe it's a subcontractor, maybe it's your competition, right? And you can also see yourself and make sure that you're listed as correctly as a certified firm, a veteran-owned firm, or a small business or whatever. You can also just go directly to your profile to see that information. This is a copy of my profile within Webs, and it shows right there that we are considered a Washington small business. If I was veteran-owned business certified, I would have that designation right there as well. So the current opportunity, I've already kind of said this once, but I'll be very clear. You have to download all the attachments and label them on your computer with the date you downloaded. This is going to be even more critical if you've already bid it and maybe downloaded old documents in there. And you might have labeled it as security services solicitation. Well, that's not helpful unless it has the date that you downloaded it. Okay, and then you hopefully read and understand all the documents, and that's where we can come into place. And watch out for embedded or linked documents within, and we'll talk about the new changes with the solicitation here. This is what it looked like earlier today. With the 6 documents listed, it has this competitive solicitation right up top. It has a bidder certification, which is kind of like who you are, kind of legal document that you have to take a look at. Then we have Exhibit B, which is your non-cost factors, and we'll talk about that. You have your Exhibit C, which is your pricing, and then Exhibit D. And one really nice thing that we love that DES does is they give you a contract, a sample contract of what it's going to look like afterwards. So you can actually see your terms and conditions in the same format that you're going to see them later if you win. So that contract document is really important, and it's one of the top things that I go to if I'm considering bidding something, so I can pull up the insurance requirements, for example, and get that out of the way, send that to my broker, and make sure that we can comply with our current levels of insurance, for example. And then this one also has an Exhibit E for diverse inclusion plan. So,
Tiffany,
yeah.
I just want to add, it's really important that you check the site regularly for answers because sometimes they publish the Q&A in sections, and the Q&A contains clarifications on people asking questions. Not only do you get a better sense for all of the questions that get answered from the industry day tomorrow will be published there, but you can also end up finding out what your competitors may be doing based off of the way they will phrase or word a question. And it's really important because in the pricing scenario, you may be thinking one thing and then you get someone ask the question and you get a better clarified answer in there. And so you're going to be held account to those clarifications that come out in the Q&A. So when they say solicitation amendments and there's a Q&A, make sure that you download and read every single question and answer in the Q&A.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. And that will be posted as an amendment on this
Mhm.
right side. And that's why I said, I guarantee there will be amendments. And that's because I know there will be questions and there will be a Q&A published.
100%.
Yep. Okay. So here's our kind of pre-bid checklist. Let's walk through these steps. So step 1, read the solicitation documents. You want to hone in on the solicitation, of course, as well as Exhibit B and any other specifications that might be important. And then you're going to decide, do I want to bid this or not? And we have a tool for you to use today. And then you want to organize your approach, assemble the bid, and submit on time. So we've provided you with a very generic, make it your own tool called a pre-proposal checklist. And we recommend everyone use one of these. The solicitation is written by people that are contracts professionals. They're not romance novel writers. Maybe they are in their spare time, but not for this. The solicitation doesn't read very easily. So having a checklist of why you're reading it will help you from your getting lost in the legalese, and will help you pull out the important components of the solicitation that will inform your strategy and inform whether or not you want to bid. So if you got my email a couple hours ago and you've already had this pre-proposal checklist pulled up and you have a copy of the solicitation pulled up, does anyone want to tell me? We'll fill this out together. We'll just kind of walk through it just real quick here. The solicitation number. Does anyone know? Go ahead and unmute and shout it out or type it into chat. Does anyone know the solicitation number? This is what I'm going to put on the very top of my solicitation checklist.
00624.
Hey, winner, winner. Thank you for playing my little game here. Do you want to share the deadline to submit? Since I know it's on page 9 and it's the first thing I look at. When is this sucker due?
April
28th.
28th.
Oh, I had April 15th. Did I make a typo?
It's April 28th.
Okay, good. All right, good catch. Thank you. So yeah, that's all going to be on page 9, as is the pre-proposal conference date, which is tomorrow at 2. As is, there's no site date. So again, this is a tool that you can make your own. If there's no site visits in what it is you typically bid on, then take out that line. With this template is often used for construction where site visits are really important. So you know, that becomes critical component of bidding. But if that's not common in your industry, then take it out. So we call it pre-proposal inquiries because we got to be fancy when we talk federal procurement, but for state procurement, Q&A suffices. When's the Q&A period? When does that end? Is that where I got the April 15th date?
Yes.
Aha, thank you. So the April 15th date is there. That means after that date, there's no guarantee they can answer your questions. They're trying to protect their capacity there to ensure fairness. So they want to make sure that all questions come in and get answered in a defined period of time. So the issue date of the solicitation was last week. And are there any reserved awards or preferences for veteran-owned businesses or small businesses? Does anybody know? Yes. Joseph says yes for Washington small or veteran-owned businesses, and that can be found on page 3. So using a checklist like this can help you pull out the critical components of the solicitation, make sure that you're not missing out on any important information, and you know where to go back and look at it later. That will save you time from having to hunt and peck later on. So if we're not going to go through the whole checklist today, that's your homework assignment, is to go through the checklist and read the solicitation. But I do want to pull out that the method of proposal submission is going to be emailed. Some people always ask us, do I submit via webs, right? Webs is really just the portal where the solicitation is posted. You submit via email. So that's found on page 11. In terms of the type of solicitation, meaning how are you going to be evaluated, this one's kind of interesting. You have half non-cost factors and half cost factors, with another 50 bonus points based on executive order. So non-cost factors are going to be really important on this. So that tells me that I better get my pen sharpened up and my writing skills honed in, because I'm going to have to explain how great I am if I'm going to respond to this well and get all of those 1,600 points. You can find that on, I think, page 12 and 13. I hope I updated that correctly. And I think that's not quite right, but let me go to this. So they're in the contract document, not the solicitation, but in the contract document is where you're going to find some terms and conditions that will impact your pricing, potentially your ability to perform, and a lot of other things. So I always recommend you read the contract document that they give you ahead of time. So in here is the economic adjustment, which could be really important given kind of our economic climate right now. So it says beginning August 2026. So a year from August, they will consider an economic adjustment. So, and it kind of goes on to talk about L&I and some sort of standard occupation classification code. And so all sorts of, so you want to just be aware, how does this thing work? And what are my risks of wages being required to go up before August of 2026? So that's just one example of why you should read the contract document as well. Okay, so do you want to bid or no bid? So a bid or no bid analysis should incorporate your company's goals, your proficiencies, so what you're good at, and your likelihood of success, because you do not have time to bid on everything. We know that. You also don't have time to bid on stuff that you don't have time to bid on. So if you're going to bid, set aside time to make sure you're bidding it well and that you have a likelihood of bidding and winning. So this analysis, it doesn't have to take a whole lot of time. Sometimes it does if you have a bigger company with a lot of different voices that you want to incorporate in. But the analysis allows you to think about why you want this work and how that you'll bid competitively to win. So we do have a tool for this as well. We've seen a lot of businesses get really competitive and hyped up and excited to bid on the first thing that they see as a new business coming into the public space. And they don't take the time to do the analysis. They just move forward with their competitive juices flowing, and it becomes a big time waste for everybody involved. But so the first question to ask yourself is, can we bid? Can you meet the technical requirements? Can you meet the schedule requirements? Do you understand the risks associated with doing business with the state? And so you would score your answers to this, like 5 being yes, we totally meet the technical requirements. This is what we do all day and have done for 10 years. 1 being, I don't know what that means. And so like you might rate yourself 1 to 5. And then you might turn it over. If you're a larger company, you might turn it over to somebody else in your firm, maybe the person that handles your cash flow, and have them kind of do a self-assessment. Or maybe your CEO or maybe your business development person will have different answers. So anyway, you kind of tally up all these scores and come up with a score, and then decide, is that high enough of a score to warrant us going after this solicitation? Keep in mind, this is a tool. I think it's in Excel, so that you could totally customize this tool to fit your needs. Maybe some of these questions don't resonate with you and they don't matter. So then go ahead and take them out and add ones in that do. For example, I added, can't we get required insurance? because that is an issue right now with a lot of the businesses we work with bidding some of these government contracts, is that the insurance requirements have doubled over the past year, and their brokers are like, I'm not giving you that. I'm not selling you that. And they're like, wait, what? I need it though. And so, or it's just prohibitively expensive without knowing you're for sure going to get work off of the contract, right? So anyway, the second question you want to ask yourself is, do we want to bid this? Is it core to our business? Is there additional work after this program? I would answer yes. A statewide contract, it will last several years, and the opportunities to sell to state agencies is wide, as well as selling to other local governments. All right, and then you go on to kind of these other questions. And then you score yourself 1 to 5 on that and kind of tally up the scores, and then decide, all right, yes, we're going to bid, or no, we're going to bow out this time. Trina, do you have any other thoughts on bid or no bid decision-making?
Yeah, I think that because the weighted evaluation factors are heavily skewed toward the writing part of it, where you're explaining your business and your service and how that meets the needs of the client. I think it's really important that you look at those questions and really dive into that before you make your bid or no bid decision, because some of the references that they're asking for, they're giving you 2 pages for you to provide references. And part of that providing that references is putting in that scope of the scope of work that you do for your current book of business. And so you want to make sure that you have the ability and the time to sit down and write that scope in a way that the clients and the evaluators are going to appreciate that and say that that book of business is very similar to the book of business that they have in the hopper for this contract. And so a lot of that, you may think, well, you know, we mostly do private clients. Well, if a lot of their work is them working in agencies and providing security for buildings, they may not see that correlation. And there could be a correlation there. You just have to make the case for it. And so that may be a little bit more writing than most people are used to when they're doing proposals. So very much consider the level of effort it's going to take for you to get that 1,600 points, or get as close as possible to that 1,600 points. Because, excuse me, I'm running out of air. Because in the pricing, only one company is going to get that best price, and everybody else is going to be graded based off of that person getting as close to the 1,600 as possible. But everybody could get 1,600 points on the non-cost factors. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but the point is that on the non-cost factors, go a little bit deeper than you normally would before you make that bid or no bid decision, because it will require a level of effort that is more than usual, I think, in terms of writing convincing arguments.
Great, thank you. Very helpful. So we're kind of zooming back out, and then we'll take your questions here, but keep in mind that APEX can help at any stage of the process. And so if you decide to bid or not, we can even kind of, I don't know, brainstorm with you what exactly Trina was talking about there. And then once you decide to bid, you need to start organizing your approach. The DES has given you some time, but it's not a lot of time, especially given that there's a lot of writing that has to happen, and that's kind of a process over time. So, and your references, that'll take time to kind of get all that together, unless you're a super organized business with all that dialed in, ready to go. So anyway, you want to take time to organize your approach, and then make sure that you're submitting with plenty of time so you don't miss that deadline. It's the most heartbreaking thing when you miss the deadline to submit. So just in summary, before we open up the floor for questions, is to ensure that you're asking questions and identifying any barriers to your participation right now. Now's the time. The procurement professional at DES wants you to understand their need. They want you to understand the solicitation evaluation factors. And so if any of that is unclear, ask the question. And that'll help you also build your strategy for winning. We want to work with you to ensure that that is a good strategy. If you don't win, ask for a debrief. A debriefing is something they go out in great depth to clarify for you in this solicitation. And so you want to make sure you learn from this, regardless of whether or not you win. And so like kind of help yourself prepare for the next one. So if you didn't win, brainstorm with your APEX to see if any of the successful contractors need subs. You could target agencies that aren't mandated to use the statewide contracts, or brainstorm other customers with your APEX. I've already told you to save all the documents with the date you received them to avoid any issues with that, and then double check your webs. So that's kind of your homework assignment too, is to hop into webs, make sure you can hop into webs, and that you double check your profile is up to date. If you are a veteran-owned firm and you're not yet certified, certification is just a few days away with the wonderful Shamika on the other end of that. So you can apply to get that designation now, and then have that competitive advantage when you bid in April. This is our contact information here. I'll go ahead and pop this into the chat. But with that, we look forward to working with you on the solicitation. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording so that we can have as candid conversation as possible for the Q&A. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully all at the pre-bid meeting being held tomorrow. And if you're watching this way after March 25th, we look forward to working with you as APEX advisors. So thank you.